Hello, friends. It's your neighborhood-friendly co-host of the Hell With This podcast, Chad Peter, here to unabashedly promote the pre-release of my new film, Road to Perth. If you've been a listener of our podcast, you've no doubt heard me talk too much about this little road trip film set in Australia. The film is now available for pre-sale in the US and Canada on Apple iTunes and will release across many other platforms on January 18th, 2022. This impossible little film was made without a crew and without a script. Actors Tommy O'Brien and Hannah Lehman set out with me on a road trip from Melbourne to Perth, Australia. We'd stay up late working on the next day's scenes and then plot out where the story would take us next. It's a narrative film, but could just as well be a documentary. Check it out. Road to Perth, available for pre-order on iTunes now. Hi, Mark.
Hello, Chad.
Welcome to Saturday.
Oh, God. Again? Already? What happened to the last week?
Did we record last week or the 2 weeks ago?
I think it was last week.
Was it? Wow. I'm all out of whack. I mean,
You're on your job pretty
I'm
long
still
hours.
in pandemic mode too, where the brain is just a cloud. Time is no object.
Yeah.
It's just a blob that kind of washes over you, I guess.
Yeah. I took a trip to Illinois, I think 3 weeks ago now. It feels like it was last week. Like I was just there.
I thought you were going to say it was like 2 months ago now.
No, it was the beginning of the month. Now we're at the end of the month. But I guess it feels like I just did that because now I'm sifting through all the crap that I mailed myself. Well, one purpose of my visit, beyond just seeing my family after a year and a half of no travel due to COVID-19, I wanted to get all of my old crap out of my parents' attic, which includes a whole lot of toys that I collected and comic books and trading cards, all the stuff that I just hoarded as a child. And I was like, maybe I'll just get in boxes and I'll hire a moving company. You know how much a fucking moving company wants to charge?
I mean, you're literally paying for people's time to drive your shit halfway across a continent.
Like the lowest cost I found for one pallet's worth of boxes, if you stacked it all up, was like $2,000. So I said, no way.
Is that for one of those what do they call them? Like the
those
rentable
pods?
Yeah, pods.
The pods were worse. The pods were like $3,500. And it was more space than I needed. I was hoping they would have some way. I'll just take like the back corner of the moving truck.
Right.
But that's not how they do it, I guess. They give you the whole truck regardless.
So you shipped all your stuff.
I mailed it and UPS'd it. And I spent...
How many boxes was that?
14.
Jesus.
And I'm not even done. Like I left some behind.
I thought you were going to say 5 or 6. Maybe.
They're not all giant moving boxes. They're various sizes. But if... we're talking about just quantity of boxes. It was 14 boxes, and I spent over $300 on shipping.
That doesn't strike me as that much for that many boxes.
Right. Well, luckily, I used media mail for a lot of it. That's like the cheapest.
You lying bastard.
What? Some of it was media. I didn't.
The whole point of media mail is for businesses to ship like books and stuff that they've sold.
That's the point.
Not for the humans to abuse
I think you're just
the
making
system.
it up now. No, I've used media mail all the time. I don't send regular shit media mail. I make sure it's like books and you can do discs and anything that's on a disc, that's media mail. Tapes.
No.
Not blank tapes.
Sure.
The rules are pretty weird. The rules are strange. You cannot ship blank audio or video tapes. They have to actually have stuff recorded on them to count.
Interesting.
Now, I don't know who is going to open up your box, take the tape out, find a player that will work on whatever format you're using, and test it.
And test it out.
Just to do a sampling of it.
I don't know. Somebody might.
It's the honor system, I guess.
Some jerk.
Yeah. I mean, over half the stuff that was in the attic, if we're talking just in raw weight, pure kilograms of junk, half of it either got thrown out or sent to like a resale store in Illinois.
Man, the only time I've had to ship anything recently, because all my stuff is still at home, at my dad's place, which I should probably go get because he's moving out. And
That's what I'm afraid. That's like part of the reason. It was like, oh shit, they might actually
they might just
sell
throw
the
it
house
out.
one day.
I don't think that's ever going to happen with me because my dad was so distraught. When I was growing up, I was like super into sports cards and baseball cards and stuff like that. And my dad's like, "Oh, I've got this great collection from my childhood. It should have Mickey Mantle cards and all these Joe DiMaggio cards and all that." And and Grandma's like, "Oh, threw it out 2 weeks ago." My dad was like, "You did what?"
I'm going to murder you, mother.
So I've still got all my. I don't know. I've just got tons of stuff. I should go back because like Pokemon cards are going like crazy right now. I've got
they?
some.
Still?
I
Like you
I
had the
made
first generation, the original cards. I never played a single Pokemon game.
You're better.
Didn't collect
I
a
didn't
single
either.
card.
I only had to because I was working in a comic store and I had to learn how to like. I never learned.
Did you have to like teach
I never
people how
learned
to play?
Pokemon. I straight up refused to learn it.
I understand that.
Because I just got so sick and tired of being in like we basically became like like a daycare.
Oh God,
The comic stores, like because parents would just come by, drop their kids off for the day.
Here's
Which I get.
$20,
I used to be
a
one
few
of those
packs of
kids that
cards.
was just ditched.
Well, it was the arcade for me,
Right.
not the comic store.
Yeah, and you end up being. Oh, nowadays we just call it the adult daycare because it's like all a bunch of 20 and 30 somethings who are sitting there playing board games all day.
In Burbank, there's like there's a bar restaurant type place where they just have a whole bunch of board games and they let you sit there as long as you want and play Risk for 7 hours. As long as you're drinking.
Hemingway's?
I don't think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I forget.
Well, there's another place that does that. If that's the case.
I don't get it. I never want to do that.
Well,
but I'm not very social either.
We did that once. The post crew from House of Cards would get together and do that. They would actually go and play board games and card games at a bar. So they'd sit around. Great thing to do with your coworkers. Go get drunk.
Yeah, as long as it's the last day on the job.
Yeah, right. That's the whole point of a rap party, isn't it?
Right. Then you know what? Over the last few jobs that I've had in the pandemic, the thing that I have really missed is the rap party.
Yeah, because
they give us some swag, like there's a shirt or a hoodie or something like that, and that's all fine and good.
I don't even get that anymore.
No. They don't have any love for the VFX people.
Where I'm at, well, no, it's not even that. It's nobody gets anything on the shows I've been on lately, which is kind of weird. Like usually, most productions like find a way to do it. They find a way to buy, a ton of shirts or whatever, and have the shitty logo like embroidered on it, and then passed out to the crew. But at least it's something.
Yeah. I've got a whole collection of shirts that I use for working out or doing yard work or something that I don't care if they get fucked up because it was a freebie from a show.
Right. You never wear them, or they also make good gifts, to give to somebody.
If somebody has heard of the show, that's the problem I've run into. They go, Strange Angel, what the fuck is that?
Fun fact, when I was working, I believe it was on Mindhunter, we started going through the garage at Fincher's building, and it was just full to the gills of like rap gifts that had never been given out for like all his movies. Like Social Network had a bunch of bags. Like House of Cards always had like a duffel bag.
Any
and,
Alien 3 stuff in there?
Which I still use. No, definitely not.
Okay, well.
That was burned long ago. The oldest thing that was in there were jackets from the game.
Oh. And so nothing from
I have
from
one.
7.
I got one. It's in it's in my closet, and it is probably the worst jacket you can imagine. Like, I would only wear that if it was like maybe minus 30 outside, because and I'd still be sweating inside of it because it is like the material is so suffocating. You put it on and you just like instantly are drenched.
But you want it to insulate you from the elements. That's the whole idea, man.
It is. I mean, I was just stoked that it was like, oh, cool, something from the game, which was like 95, 90.
Yeah.
Well, I guess 7 was 95.
Was it?
Yeah. But
I'll
it
take your word
was,
on that.
I mean, it was, it was still a ways back. Um, and I, I don't know what else he had in there, but there was all kinds of random shit that we basically threw out and gave away to all the people working at the building.
Here's the thing you never worked on.
Yeah, right.
Take a shirt. See, that's funny that you you actually have decided what the worst jacket ever made is. And from my time on Raised by Wolves, the crew gift on that was the best coat
The best coat ever.
I've ever gotten. It's got to have 24 pockets on it in places you would not even expect. It's got like a neck pocket. It's got inside, outside, place for your hands. It's got built-in gloves in the sleeves. It's got a drawstring hood that you can kind of pack up in, so it's not always a hood hanging off the back. And I think it was made in South Africa, which is where they shot the show. It's great. It was a great one.
Sometimes
I'm never getting
sometimes
rid
they
of
turn
it.
out great. Like they'll give you stuff that actually doesn't. Maybe we got to a point where we'd start getting stuff for the shows over there at Fincher's, and it would just be stuff that didn't even have labels for what the show was. It was just like really good quality.
It was just nice.
Like here's a
stuff.
$300 bag,
and we're not going to sully it with the logo from whatever
right.
show.
My backpack over there has Mindhunter etched on it, but it's like you can't even see it. It's like so tiny.
You really got to look,
And
yeah.
it actually looks like it's built into like the actual design of the bag. So
Right. Like it could be the people who made the bag is their company's called
I think
Mindhunter.
there's an actual art to getting this stuff made for people, because I kind of wanted to do that for the Mr. Robot like VFX team. Like, usually it's the supervisor who will get these things made for the crew.
So many responsibilities in your job.
I just always felt bad, like, because usually it was like the accountants or somebody who's actually setting aside some money, for crew gifts. I was like, I don't know, technically the what's the I guess it's not a legality thing. It's like I guess an ethics thing, maybe. Like you're spending money from the production budget, like to buy all this shit.
Right.
It's basically gifts.
Like there's a tax write-off you can do, business gifts. I'm sure they're using that to their advantage somehow, but there is a limit. Like it's $50 per person.
Yeah, we definitely went over that. I mean, I never did, but somebody did somewhere.
There's some people out there, getting back to no rat parties or only getting crew gifts maybe on shows. There are some people complaining like, well, that's part of the perks of working on these shows. If they're not going to spend all this money on the rat party, I want my share of that rat party in my paycheck.
All right.
I want like a bonus check at the end of the season.
Who says this? I've never heard anybody complain about this.
You're not
gonna name names?
No, it's not what this is for. I'm just saying.
I don't know. I've never run across anybody who does that. I can imagine somebody in this complainer society that
there are all kinds of people in the Editors Guild. I will say that. And they'll complain about any little dime that doesn't show up in their check. Yeah. Like, well, what do you mean Father's Day isn't a holiday? I want to get paid. Let's make that part of the union holidays. I want that to show up on my paycheck. Just for example, nobody said that.
Yeah. Mark did.
I didn't say that. I'm not even a father. I don't care about that. Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of the unions, but there are members of the unions. Nobody in leadership wants to do this stuff. But some people think if the union is not bending over backwards to give you a bunch of money you didn't technically earn, then what's the point of even having a union?
Yeah, well, that's just I mean that we could go on a whole 3-hour topic about how people just complain about shit, how they're owed like things these days,
entitlements
and just not like earning your shit or working your way up a ladder. It's like instant gratification culture, and that probably just stems from the internet and how everything has been sped up so
yeah greatly. I think people, they have certain expectations, and if they don't see that happening in like their first year on a job, well, what the hell is this even for?
Do you feel? I mean, obviously, you've been a member of a union longer than I have.
Do you
What?
have a union? That was my next question.
I am Directors Guild,
Oh, well, okay.
but the problem with that is that you have to get a studio to hire you as a director. So it's like
Right.
I've only technically got 1 day of directing,
Right. You sort of had to finagle that just as a
and
technicality
I
to
had
get
to
in.
argue for that just to get it.
Right.
Even though I did a lot more than that.
Did I mention on one of these episodes that we did like how I got into the union? Basically, I was doing reality TV. I was doing I think it was season 4 of American Ninja Warrior, and we were doing all the prep work and they were getting ready to film, and right before things hit full swing, full steam ahead, whatever metaphor you want to use there, we got the word that the show post production was flipping to union.
Mhm.
So I didn't have to do anything.
Right.
It just
Well,
happened.
that's usually how it does happen with editors, from what I've heard.
I think there are a lot of there's a lot of people who like they'll do all the non-union hours you have to as a prerequisite, and they'll get their paperwork kind of submitted to the union, and then they're on the verge of joining, but because there's a fee to join, it's like $1,000 or something like that.
That's it.
I don't know, 1,500. It's somewhere in there. It's like a week's pay, maybe.
God.
Um,
But they would have had to pay that for you, wouldn't they? Usually, if
no.
it's a show that's saying we're gonna switch to unionizing, they have to pay for you.
I will let our many
Speaking
union
of things that I'm owed,
I will let our many listeners who are in the Editors Guild fill us in on that, because I don't know the particulars. I don't remember now. It was so long ago. One way, yes, you can have the show pay for your entrance fee, or you can, as an individual, just pay the fee, and now you're in the union, and now you
Right.
can take the union work. But most people usually wait until they have an opening for that union job. I was lucky enough where I didn't have to try to talk somebody into letting me
Like
take
I
a
did.
union job, even
Yeah.
though I wasn't technically in the union yet.
Right.
I was doing the show, I was being paid non-union already, and then they decided to change it to
Right.
union while I was already there. So it was very easy for me. Why was I telling this story?
I don't know. I don't even remember. Well, I mean, we're just
You were saying like I've been in the union longer. I think the benefits outweigh the costs, because it's not like I ever go, gee whiz, I totally wish I was still working non-union.
Yeah.
A lot of people in reality TV, which is still mostly non-union, I believe, they make a ton of money, but there are fewer benefits.
Yeah, they're not putting it away for retirement funds. I mean, isn't
Right.
that the whole point of your union?
You get
Effectively,
there's
to
a health
give
plan
you-
and a pension.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's not like I feel like we've talked about this before, that our employment is so brief. We're jumping from show to show, which may have different companies running those shows.
Right. So
And
we
yet
don't have a
we don't
retirement plan
have
with
a
any one of
through line.
those.
The only through line is the union.
Yeah.
It's the same with like the DGA and directing. Like, you have to accrue it over years, and in order to qualify for medical insurance, you have to do a certain number of days a year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's the same in the editors
Yeah, you
guild.
have to get, I forget, 400 hours a year
Yeah.
to maintain your benefits, or to even start them, like after you've joined. And after that, you can bank an additional 400, I want to say. So if you're out of work for a while, you still have like a couple more quarters
See,
to
that's good.
keep you alive.
Directing it's 10 days a year. You have to work 10 days a year, and it sounds easy.
Well, if you're
but
any
that's
good,
pretty
I
damn
mean-
hard. I mean,
That's like
if you get one
2
episode
episodes of TV.
just one, because any day that you direct, there's always an additional prep day, which is the same pay rate.
I
So
see.
it's just basically considered 2 days for every 1 day.
Right. So if you're on a thing where
you're
you're
on
filming
one
for 5
episode-
days for an hour-long drama.
Yeah, and I don't. Maybe that's not the case. I've never been anywhere close enough to actually accrue that amount, so I've never looked into it. And VFX doesn't pay shit. There's no union.
Right.
There's been like murmurings of trying to get a union together, but there's just not enough incentive on behalf of the studios.
Right. It's like, it's sort of I don't know, was Animation Guild the last, like the newest union to form.
Probably.
I think so. They had like a huge split with IATSE, that is IATSE, in the 80s, I think. And yeah, they were just part of IATSE, but then they decided we're not getting enough out of this deal. We're going to make our own guild. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ins and outs, and I don't claim to understand them all.
Yeah.
But there are people out there who are just like, no way, you can't tell me what jobs to take, and blah blah blah. It's like nobody's trying to. In fact, Editors Guild members can still go and take non-union work if they want to. There's there's no penalty to pay.
Wow.
Like if you made a movie and you brought me on as an editor, wink wink, or even your assistant editor, whatever, and it was all non-union, there would be no reason that I couldn't take that job. You would not be forced to pay me union rates or anything like that.
Interesting. It definitely does not work that way in the DGA.
No.
That is, I mean, I would get fined if I took actors. A job, and from what I understand, well, SAG, technically that's true, but actors that are SAG always work non-union jobs.
I thought there was.
They're just you can't be caught doing it.
Well, that's the thing. Like if people jump through all these hoops to they use a fake name or they won't tell anybody that they were in this thing.
But I've never heard of anyone actually being kicked out of SAG for doing something.
Okay, I don't know any actors, so I guess I haven't heard about that either. But I wouldn't.
I mean, there's definitely. I think they put the fear of God into you, like as an actor. They're like,
I think a lot of it's the honor system.
Yeah, and it's the honor system. I think DGA, from what I've heard, is actually a little bit more strict about it. Mm-hmm. I mean,
I think they have fewer members.
There's been, and it's funny, for them to monitor. You wouldn't know. There's some people that you wouldn't know aren't DGA, like Quentin Tarantino. He is DGA now, but it was only up until like the last 5 years that he finally joined into the guild.
Okay.
And you don't really have to. If you're a director, you can do whatever you want.
Like Robert Rodriguez, he's not in the DGA. And he has his own fucking studio in Houston or whatever.
Neither is George Lucas, because famously, he was a part of the DGA, and then he made Star Wars, and he didn't want to use the DGA's crediting system at the beginning of Star Wars.
He just wanted to go straight to the crawl.
Yeah, he wanted to go straight to the famous
crawl. So he
quit
the guild just to
they sued him or something. And
I just don't know, some of the rules.
He was like, screw you guys, I'm out of here. And I mean, I don't blame him. Like, they're trying to keep a credit system that's a certain way, but obviously that's like, for that movie, like, can you imagine it starting with rolling credits as opposed to the scroll of
a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away? Yeah, that's the first thing you see after the Fox logo.
It's iconic in its own way, and because
and I get that the rules are established for a reason. But if everybody has signed off on breaking that rule and nobody cares, it's not like, I'm sure that the reason DGA says the director's credit has to be in the opening credits within the first however many minutes of the movie. The reason is to make sure everybody watching the movie knows who's responsible for it. Like, they're giving credit. They're, paying homage to the creative force behind the movie, the director. But if the director goes, yeah, I'm cool, I'm just going to pass on that for this one movie, just give him a pass. It's not going to dilute the power of the title directed by for everyone else. Like, what is the point? Why would they ever sue a super popular director?
I don't know if it's still like something. I think that if a director's credit's going to appear in the opening, there's a certain list of credits that have to be shown regardless. I think they can say, no, I don't want it to be in the beginning, and you can actually start the movie without anything. I think that is
but then it's nobody's.
Yeah, nobody can be credited. And that's just a fairness thing across the board, which, all right.
There anytime I have to put in credits on a TV show, it has to get approved by legal.
You get a master list. That's
exactly, and it says down to the frame how many frames each name is supposed to be on, including how long a dissolve at the beginning and end of each credit. It's very precise.
It's super specific.
Yeah, they don't. We
and then they
still
jam
freedom.
in
We still have freedom to put it where we want, but it has to be in a certain order, and for a certain length of time.
It's interesting to me because studios do have like certain rules that they don't allow certain things to be credited. Like if they work for a vendor, they may not. There may be a rule that says we do not credit vendors, and so that means any work done by them just isn't credited.
No one will ever know.
They credit individuals, but not vendors, which is mind-blowing to me. I feel like anybody who has touched something in any capacity, even if it's just for a day, should be credited in some aspect.
And what's wrong with putting this particular list of names under a heading of that vendor's?
Nobody reads it anyway, except maybe you and I.
Yeah. Looking for people we know.
Yeah, looking for
Ryan Weaver.
Oh, look. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just, it's just silly.
I think one thing I did mention like 2 years ago on the show, on Crazy X, there were some episodes being directed by two women who were originally like on the writer's staff. And the DGA was saying like, nope, we can't get two names. You got to pick one. And apparently they are
directors.
They are super. They're super
co-directors.
Sticklers about having two directors' names.
Interesting. I wonder how that's going to work out for our friends Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson, because they
going okay so far.
Because they only just recently signed on to the DGA.
Oh, everything they've done before was not DGA.
Because I since I'm in, I get a monthly catalog that says it actually puts a list of names.
Here's the fresh meat.
Here's the new people who have joined. Like the other day, I was looking at it, and Halle Berry's name was popped up in there. Wow. But Aaron Moorhead's name popped up one day. And I sent him a text picture of it, and he texted back like, "Are you stalking me?" But that's what I mean. Like, not everybody wants to join because it is expensive. I mean, I had to pay to get in. Usually, a studio will pay it for you, but it was $12,000 to get in.
Did they do?
And they haven't done
partial
shit for me yet. Besides, get me Academy Award screeners every year, which is not bad.
That's worth it. That's got to be at least $12,000 a year, right there.
No.
I've often wondered about the boxes around certain names. One that popped up not too long ago on Twitter. Somebody shared, I think it was a poster of the iconic Batman poster, which is just the symbol. And it says like Keaton, Nicholson. Right. It might have been Nicholson first. I don't even know. And then down in the tiny text, Kim Basinger is in there, and her name has a box around it. And somebody was asking, why the fuck is her name have a box around it, but nobody else's? And I proposed that it was because she was going to be in the movie Boxing Helena later.
That seems like a bit of a stretch.
It's yeah. Well, she didn't do Boxing Helena anyway, so
yeah. Maybe it's because she had to fight for credit on there, and now it's a similar situation.
Because it was like, here's the two big fucking stars, but she was a star in her own right. So to draw the eye down in that block of text at the bottom of every poster, it's just like, oh, Kim Basinger's in this too.
Well, we could definitely get into the sexism of headliners and how the male is always listed before the female.
You're probably right.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen, it always...
I guess I'm not trying to defend it because I don't know anything about it really, but most of the time that happens, I'm betting it's because the main character of the movie is the actor, not the actress.
Well, in some cases, it's not. At least that's the times I've ever noticed when it was clearly not. It was like, why is that person listed above? And usually it's because bigger star power or whatever, and they have to throw them a bigger bone to get them in the movie and all this bullshit. My
favorite is that very typical poster with the row of heads, but then the names above the heads don't match. I hate that shit. And it's all just legal.
I was just thinking about that the other day. I was looking at something. It was like two heads, and the names above them didn't swap. It wasn't even swapped. It wasn't even their names. It wasn't them. It was someone else's names. I was like, wait a minute.
Adrian Brody is nowhere on this poster. Why is his name up there?
I think it's your turn to pick a movie. We haven't even discussed.
No, we haven't. But I think this will. We've mentioned that you're doing visual effects work lately, and what I've brought to the table is 1985's visual effects extravaganza from Joe Dante, Explorers.
All right. Something I haven't seen.
Something you haven't seen. I made
Shockingly, I feel like that's one that I've. Well,
I have a
I
lot
don't know
of
that I ever
nostalgia
heard about
for
it
this
for a
one.
while, but
I think it's so fucking cool, like as a kid's movie, and it pretty much is a kid's movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I'm hoping I don't regret showing this one. Yeah, I want you to look at the visual effects and just guess like how much money they spent on some of the major effects you'll see in the
oh
film.
man, I can't even do that in modern movies, let alone.
Secret's out. All right, let's put the movie in.
Okay.
They were just like everyone else. They dreamed of going to the stars. But unlike everyone else,
What's going on here?
they discovered a way to get there.
You dreamt it, I felt it, and it's our secret. It's pretty neat, huh?
Then, they took it one step further,
I christened thee the Thunder Road.
and it worked.
Look how fast we're going. I bet we could go anywhere. Do you realize what it means?
Now, they're about to find out just how far it can go.
Let's face it, somebody's calling us.
Let's go.
All around the world. Did you see what I saw? Roll is the only place.
They're here.
All around the world. Rock and roll is the only place. You can hear those jukebox jumping all night and all through the day.
Explorers.
We come in peace.
The adventure begins in your own backyard.
How long into that movie did it take you to realize that was Ethan Hawke? Or did you know right away?
I knew right away.
Oh, okay. Because I forgot that was him. So like when I saw him, I was going, that kid's really familiar. It took probably 2 minutes for me to go, oh, yeah. I thought River Phoenix was the only famous kid actor.
Isn't it really? Well,
I forgot.
I mean, well, I told you as we were starting this that Orla and I actually had started watching and finished Stand By Me the other day. So River Phoenix was like, he was already.
You didn't just start it; you finished it as well.
Stand By Me had been done years after this. I don't know, not that many years after this.
This was 85. Wasn't Stand By Me 87?
7, probably, yeah. So, I mean, River Phoenix looks younger in this, but no, Ethan looked the same. The one I was having trouble with was the third kid.
Who hasn't done much of anything.
I was going to say,
apart from this. He's been in some other Joe Dante
set
projects.
In the 80s, he actually looks like he could have been the guy who played Airwolf. You know what I mean?
Jan Michael Vincent?
Yeah, is he still alive? I know
think,
he
no,
lost
wait,
a leg or something due to alcoholism.
Yeah, I think he might be dead.
bad.
I haven't really followed his career much, so I couldn't say.
Well, he hasn't really had one.
Yeah, because he might be
he
dead.
started like strong and just like went off the deep end with alcoholism.
Right.
Anyway, that's a whole.
I refer
topic.
to the third kid as the third one.
I
or the
feel
Corey
like
Feldman
he's
role.
still around though. I mean, even the
last
other
thing
kid and the parents. I mean, James Cromwell obviously, but the mother as well. I just don't know them. They're not like names at the top of my head.
Well, that third kid who plays Darren, or is it Derek? I think it was Darren. I think the last thing he did was in like 1997.
Yeah.
He's not really around. He's sort of like a Newt from Aliens.
You just looked this up?
I just looked this up.
Oh, okay.
He played a very small role in Gremlins 2, another Joe Dante movie.
Yeah.
But it was like...
Well, maybe that's where I recognize him from, because he's definitely somebody I recognize.
I think his character was named like Mike the Popcorn Jerk or something like that. It was like a nothing role. I don't remember a popcorn jerk.
I wonder
in
why,
Gremlins
because
2.
his acting wasn't any worse off than the other two who went on to be famous. Like,
No.
Maybe he just didn't.
But I like how Ethan Hawke, he was the one who's like always dreamed to go into space. He's way into science fiction.
Yeah.
So he's excited about everything. He's like, fuck, let's do it. We don't need to test everything. Let's just go. And River Phoenix is the scientist. He's like, no, we've got to have a checklist. We got to make sure we're not going to run out of fucking air. You know, little things like that. And the third kid, he's like, whatever,
I'm
man.
just
I'm
along
just
for the ride.
Yeah. Just tell me what buttons to press. I'll do it. He doesn't have like a strong presence there.
I didn't get that. I felt like he did. I mean, I understand what you're saying. His character didn't have a strong like
plot-wise. He
motivation
didn't
to be
do
there.
much. Like he scares away
Right.
or diverts. He doesn't scare away the bully at the beginning. He just gets the bully's attention away from Ethan Hawke's character
and runs away.
And we hear about his alcoholic dad who operates a junkyard. And there was one little line where he was saying, like, my dad's okay. He taught me how to run. Yeah. And I'm like as in away from dad?
Well, that reminded me a lot of Stand By Me and I was wondering if just a theme in the 80s that people fell back on was kids with like abusive fathers, and things like where, obviously kids were raised very much more abusively back in the day.
Right. It was more acceptable. Maybe people weren't bragging about it so much, but it was almost expected in certain social classes. Like, oh yeah, that kid's getting the belt tonight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was just every class back then. So how did it hold up for you? When's the last time you saw it?
Probably like 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think back when I was living with you,
you mentioned.
I remembered you guys watching it.
You, me, and Nick Mathis were in the same apartment when we watched this last. That's probably the last time I saw it.
I did not see it though at the time.
Right.
I remember not
probably
being terribly interested because
fucking
I hadn't heard of
kid
it.
space movie. Fuck that, and you left the room.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
But yeah, it's like about a trio of kids who stumble their way into amazing technology that could not possibly be replicated by an Apple IIe.
Says you.
Says me. And like they build a spaceship out of spare parts that they could find at one of their dad's junkyards. So yeah, I think Nick Mathis was drawn in by that whole do-it-yourself kind of approach, that angle in the movie. But I gotta say, it doesn't hold up as well as I remember, especially the ending. Anything after they leave the big spaceship at the end, like the movie just stops. We are literally we've gone on a space adventure. We've met some actual aliens. We get zipped back to Earth, and now they're back in science class and feeling a little tired because they were up really late meeting aliens the previous night. And a little alien artifact glows green. Apparently disintegrates the rest of the classroom.
Yeah.
Every other student disappears.
Any sense to me, yeah.
Well, what I assumed was happening was that all the kids in the dream, the three boys and the one girl, the future girlfriend, they are all asleep.
Right.
Which means that teacher now has 4 kids sleeping their way through science class. And who knows? Maybe it creates a pocket alternate universe that they can inhabit.
Children.
And then we don't see what happens after that, so it's sort of confusing. Like, hold on,
look,
are they asleep? Is the rest of the world asleep?
They flew to another planet in a basically something they built out of a trash can. Yeah. And you're trying to assess logic out of this?
Well, yeah, I am. Also, the whole thing, River Phoenix, I feel like the writers wanted to make it sound science-y enough just to throw the audience off, because in the mid-'80s, that's when home computers were becoming a thing. Like, you could afford an Apple computer for the home, but most people didn't know enough about programming to say, like, well, this is total bullshit. That doesn't make any sense, because nobody knew what did make sense. They
were actually pretty
on screen.
ahead of the curve, I would say.
At least they recognize there's an X, Y, and Z axis in 3-dimensional space.
When they're talking about origin points, which is like, VFX, you need to know
but then
that is. And
then when he tries to explain, like, oh yeah, well this bubble won't contain inertia because it's a vacuum or something like that. That has nothing to do with inertia. Nothing at all. If you're gonna like go 100,000 miles per hour and stop on a dime, no matter what's inside your bubble, it's gonna get splatted into one end. But whatever, kid sci-fi movie, they just have to move past it, and so do we. So I didn't get hung up on that.
Yeah.
But I did notice that they made an attempt to explain some of these fantastical things away when they could have easily said, like, look, we don't know how this works. it just does. Like, it's fucking alien technology. Why bother even trying? They're 10 years old. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't even think about it.
No, their audience isn't going to care either.
Right.
Because they're all 10. So now that you're not 10, well, okay, because obviously the point of this podcast usually is to bring along something to promote for the rest of the world. Like,
yeah. Well,
here's this movie. I
this
mean,
is-
obviously this is
this
not
is
a
the-
lesser known movie, but it's not the biggest of the 80s, that's for sure.
No. In fact, I looked up the budget while we were watching. $25 million movie in 1985.
You're kidding me.
I'm not kidding. That in today's money, that's a $65 million movie. And
That seems insane to me, given that
ILM,
Aliens,
VFX, and Aliens,
which
and,
was made a year later,
Mm.
only cost $16 million.
I think Joe Dante was coming off of Gremlins,
Yeah.
so he had the studio's
Wait, this
support.
was after Gremlins?
Yes,
Oh.
before Gremlins 2, which was like 1989. Yeah, I think people had a lot of faith in Joe Dante, and they were like, this kid River Phoenix is going to blow the socks off everybody, and he didn't, frankly.
Was this River's first movie?
I don't think it was his very first. No, I didn't look.
Was it Ethan's?
It might have been Ethan's first.
Because
movie.
Ethan to me in this shows like a lot of potential.
Promise.
Like, as an actor.
Yeah, he like you can feel the energy. It doesn't scream star material to me, but he's a kid. It doesn't have to. Like, I didn't feel that way about Macaulay Culkin either.
Right.
I was the budget was 25. Guess how much it made worldwide in total in theaters?
25,000.
No, better than that. Jeez, it made 10 million on a 25 million.
So it was
budget.
a bomb.
It was a total bomb.
I mean that just that initial number sounds like a gross over exaggeration of what was probably spent on it.
Who knows? I mean, all those visual effects of the bubble flying around the room.
The Tron level, not even Tron. At least these are computer graphics. Tron was like hand. A lot of it was hand animated, hand rotoscope.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot
like
of,
they did
lot
the
of
wireframe
lines
animations
were, like,
and then traced
drawn
it.
and painted over the frame.
Yeah, I know. Like all the glowing in Tron was done by hand.
Yeah.
They filmed it on black and white film and added in the blue and the red. Yeah.
You know what
this
this
was a
reminds
visual.
me of?
What?
Since you haven't yet asked me my opinion of the movie. Ice Pirates.
Anytime, Chad. It reminds you of Ice Pirates?
Yes.
This is better than Ice Pirates. Oh my god. It's not even a comparison to me.
Look, there's a time and a place to see these kind of movies, and it's when you're young, and
I feel like if
in the mood to like experience new things. And about a third of the way through this movie, and especially towards the ending when the aliens come out, I told you this was my nightmare.
Yeah.
Not lying. Well, it's just like...
Do you mean a literal nightmare or like,
No,
oh my
it's
god, I
just-
want to get out of here
There's something,
nightmare?
you know, like because we mentioned Willy Wonka in the middle of it. There's a
Right.
creepiness factor to Willy Wonka that is kind of terrifying in a way. This movie has
Because you're living in his
that.
world. Whenever you enter the factory, it's like you don't know what could
This
happen.
movie has that, but without the enjoyment. I know I'm probably shitting all over some kid's, dream movie. But a movie that I loved as a kid that did not hold up well in my adulthood was Flight of the Navigator.
Oh, really?
These movies with kids and like these creepy aliens,
These
like
concepts,
blobs.
also like these galactic level consequences.
Well, and
It's too much for a kids movie.
Well, in this, I mean,
And
it
at
was
least
like
there's
they're trying to be serious about inertia. We won't go splat inside of this bubble.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they go and show up at this alien world and don't seem to have any issues with the fact that the aliens look horrific and look like something out of some
I think
terrifying.
when they first see Whack, that's his name. When
yeah,
they
where
first
did he
see
go?
him, Still, they
It's
didn't-
not very.
they didn't do what they do in every Ridley Scott alien movie, which is go, a puddle of goo. I'm gonna stick my finger in it and stick it up my nose. They didn't act like morons. They were just like, oh.
But their
fuck.
suspense wasn't any different. I mean, they very well could have been like, what if those aliens had come over and just ripped them in half? Because they were, like River Phoenix was getting stroked by the girl
Yeah.
alien who was like rubbing her little sucker finger all over his
temples and stuff.
temples. I was like, he's just like, whatever.
I
He's
was
like,
kind of hoping
they just want to watch TV with us. It's like, probably not.
I was kind of hoping they were going to explain that like some alien pheromone thing. Like that's why he's so calm, because she whipped out the pheromones. I don't know.
I mean, it's not, the aliens do not appear like Kim Basinger in this movie. They're not, so I married an alien or whatever the hell that
My
movie
stepmother's an
was.
alien.
Yes, that's the one. All these 80s movies that kind of fell into this trope, I guess. I don't know if I'd call it a trope necessarily, but there was a theme throughout the 80s.
Where aliens see Earth TV and make a lot of judgments.
Well, that too, yeah, because the ending, you're right, the ending of this is almost identical to the ending of The Abyss.
Except that, the consequences were much higher stakes.
Much stronger in,
like, we're gonna wash over your entire continent.
But they essentially show the kids that they've learned by watching TV, which is what happens with the NTIs and The Abyss.
Right, everything they know about us, they know through reruns.
I guess I don't know. There was like you said about the third kid not really having any character arc. That's kind of how I felt with this movie as a whole. Like the other two, like they had, like, I guess character types.
Yeah, but they don't change.
But they
come out the same way.
Arc. There's no.
It's a simple adventure movie, and they don't. Yeah, they're not changing their whole paradigms as characters.
It's not something that aged well. Like at least we can go back and watch, Pee-wee's Big Adventure and be taken on an adventure still to this day as adults. That's kind of interesting and wacky and weird. This is wacky and weird.
But to what end?
Without the interesting.
I think
I'm not trying to shit all over it because it's bizarre and it's a weird movie in its own right.
Yeah. But I think as a matter of pacing, it takes a long time to get going. Even though the very first scene of the movie is the dream of this circuit board computer thing that they build, and that's how they can make their spaceship by creating a electrostatic bubble in space around whatever they want, and it'll fly them wherever they want to go. That's like the first thing. So you'd think we're off and running.
Right.
But there's so much setup, and it's like, oh, we got to figure out how this thing works, and we got to get River Phoenix trapped in the bubble, and he goes underground for a while. Then I
found that stuff interesting to an extent.
Really?
Like,
see, that's where I found it dragging.
That was pretty much where it stopped for me.
I wanted there to be more aliens, like more on their first flight with their ship. What do they call it? Thunder Road?
Yeah.
Thunder Road.
Right. Bruce Springsteen song.
Yeah.
Lyric.
They start getting some like weird interference stuff from the alien signal that's trying to hijack their ship.
Yeah.
If that had been introduced much earlier or somehow, right now it seems like the aliens really come out of nowhere. Because we're given no clues as to where the dreams are coming from. It could be divine for all we know. We don't know.
Well, okay. Let's look at the cop, for instance. There's one cop in the movie who's
the helicopter
pilot.
Yeah.
One of maybe he's a pilot. I don't know.
He flew out on his own.
Okay.
He could pilot the helicopter.
Well then, yeah, because the first time they go flying, the kids go up in their spaceship that they built out of a scrap heap. They're flying through the air and they almost run into a helicopter. The helicopter pilot's a cop, comes down. A couple days later, finds the spaceship.
And he calls somebody at work.
Yeah.
And he says, like, I've been having these dreams since I was a kid. So that is planting the seed. Like, there are certain chosen people who receive these dreams from wherever they come from. It's sort of a generational thing. And this guy who's grown up never acted on it. And you can kind of feel like he's the bad guy for a minute. And that's another one of those bad storytelling things. Like, he's barely in the movie.
I thought he was going to be the bad guy like E.T.
I thought he was going to get trapped in the ship with him and go with.
Wow.
That would have been fun.
Yeah, he definitely had the setup of, oh, this guy's going to be the bad guy through the whole movie.
Yeah,
But the
but
moment
then
he sees
he
kids
sees the
fly
ship
away again, he's like, "Good job, kids!" And
right.
that's the
He's
end
all
of his
smiling,
storyline.
and he's just like, wow, somebody finally made it, and somehow he's tied it together with his dreams. Don't ask me how. I should also mention the original cut of this movie was 3.5 hours long.
Oh fuck!
Like I'm assuming that's the editor's assembly. Like everything they had to work with
Oh my
was
God.
3.5 hours, and they got that the studio Paramount. They kicked Joe Dante out, and
Off
we're
the
like,
movie.
we're gonna
take
release
it.
what you have now. We're done working on this fucking thing.
We're-
Apparently, it had a very extended.
We're gonna release what you have now after we cut it down to an hour and
Well, yeah,
10 minutes.
I mean,
how long
I
is this? 90? Barely
I
even
didn't
90?
even look. It was probably 100 minutes or something.
It did not seem that long.
No, it didn't feel long, but it felt. I don't know. I'm trying to think as a writer, what would I do differently?
Well, no wonder this shit cost $65 million. If they literally cut 2 hours out of the movie, what were those 2 hours?
I think it was a lot to do with this helicopter pilot.
Could be. Yeah.
I'm betting there was a lot more in the middle of the movie that kind of set up more stakes and brought in more characters. And I feel like the movie originally was more about, are these kids even going to pull off their little trip? Are they even going to make it?
Right.
Sort of like...
Stakes.
Well, stakes, but sort of like E.T.
Right.
With the big climax is all the kids on their bikes, and they're trying to outrun the cops through the neighborhood, and then E.T. uses his magic alien powers and makes them all fly. That was like the fucking whoa moment.
Yeah.
And when these kids escape from the cop, it's just sort of like, oh yeah, they got there, no problem. There was no conflict. They just know he's on his way.
Right.
And then they take off.
Like, I mean, I understand it from a logical point of view, but as far as storytelling, there's zero conflict, zero stakes.
Yeah, there's no antagonist, and it seems like that cop guy should have been it for more of the movie.
Yeah.
But they cut out most of it or something like that. Or maybe it was never there and they had to make it up as they went. Everything I read about the movie illustrated a very rushed and troubled production. Like the first time we see the alien Whack, he's wearing like a furry kind of coat thing. And then in the next scene, he whips it off. They had him wearing a coat because the costume wasn't done. They had to cover up all the missing parts.
Until it was done.
Until it was done for the next scene that they shot. So, it was that kind of movie.
What other movies has Joe Dante done?
Gremlins 2. He did a movie called The Hole, I think.
Was that recently?
That was like in 2010, I want to say.
With Thora Birch?
I don't know. I never saw it. But Joe Dante.
If it's a Thora Birch movie, I saw it. I think Keira Knightley was in that too. Maybe.
I don't think that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Hey, didn't he do something else relatively recent?
Oh, he did Small Soldiers.
How old is he?
How old is he?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's old. He's probably in his 70s.
I guess. I mean, there's every so often. I don't. First of all, I don't know how I'd never really even heard of this movie before I lived with you in 2006,
me
2007.
Too, because you're a few years older than me, but not so much older that you wouldn't have seen it in the video store or you wouldn't have seen the commercials and been like, that shit looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, some movies just kind of like totally escaped my field of view.
He's like 70, 76 or something, 75.
Okay. So he was...
Inner Space, of course he did.
So
Inner
he would have
Space.
been in his 30s or late 20s when he did this, I mean.
He did The Howling.
Okay.
Yeah, he was about 40 when he made this. Like,
so he obviously, I mean, he's got a very strong sense of special effects and, creature design and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of creature design, Rob Bottin, famous from The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing,
did this. Yeah.
He did the aliens in this movie.
Well, the puppeteers must have had a field day, and
I think these alien creatures, as
they're pretty good for
as boxy as the bodies are. Like when he turns, like there's no activity in the tail. It's just like a big structure. Fine, but it's all in the face. Whoever's in control of the eyes is working overtime,
right?
With Whack, because they're just like blinking and pointing in different directions.
Yeah.
and they're really nailing like the eye lines when he's talking to people. And Robert Picardo is in that costume. You can only see his mouth. He's completely blind in there. He's got to do all the big acting and interact with people sometimes. And apparently he was extremely uncomfortable with all that fucking mechanical gear.
Did they
on his head.
Because I noticed there was one scene where I didn't notice eye slots
Mm-hmm.
in the creature, but I did in one scene in particular.
Oh, you did?
And
I
could
never
see
saw
eye
any eye
slots
spots.
because it looked like a mini face inside of the head. That just made me go, like, it was just,
He's got two faces.
It was creepy, but there's a handful of movies that you see as a kid and you're like, wow, that movie blew my mind, and then you see it later in life and you're like,
Yeah,
probably
I
should have
think
left it in the past.
that may be where I'm at with this movie because, like I said, the ending is just falls flat. And you're right, there's no character arc for anybody, and I don't think they cared at the time. It wasn't about that. The things I liked when I was a kid was sort of venturing into the unknown.
Yeah.
They didn't know what this device was going to do exactly, but they were risking themselves anyway by going
Wasn't that
in the
most
bubble.
80s movies?
I don't know.
I always felt like most 80s
Like the
movies,
Goonies? Goonies had
yeah.
a plot.
But that's what was so exciting about the 80s. Like all films back then, especially kids movies, were always about adventure and like going out to explore shit. It's like, Stand By Me, let's go find a dead body. Let's go see this body. Goonies, let's go find the pirate ship and the gold and all that shit.
In this case, well, it's like
It's all the
Ethan Hawke's motivation is I want to go to space, even though they don't really set that up very well. They just say that he's really into science fiction movies. That's not the same thing as wanting to go to space. I digress. River Phoenix's whole motivation is this is a discovery that could change the world. So I want to be part of it. This is made with my computer. I want to do it. And the third kid is bored.
It all stems from Star Wars, though, I think. Because, I mean, you've got this generation of kids before that who were just bored out of their minds, throwing rocks and making, chalk art. And then you
rolling a wheel down the road with a stick.
And then they go see a Jawa electrocute R2-D2 and their minds are blown. And then...
In fact, their minds go, wow!
I mean, most of these kids are, probably in their 20s smoking a little doobie. And they get high, and then they get into film, and they start making movies. And by the time they're 30, Joe Dante in the 80s, they're kind of living their childhood back through what Star Wars like created in them. Just this inventiveness that didn't exist in the 70s prior to that, really.
Yeah.
And 60s, really, because all the movies, 70s and 60s movies are all kind of sci-fi, especially you're coming out of this era where everything's very blocky and horrible looking, whereas 2001 kind of started this whole other trend
where the visual effects can really change the whole scope of your film.
And Alien kind of came out of that as well. And then you get this rush of movies like this in the 80s, which I'm saying, we're all inspired from Star Wars, and then Spielberg kind of branching off of that, and E.T. and everything kind of coming out of it.
And Mac and Me was a big inspiration.
Stranger Things is a direct,
for sure,
correlation from all that.
Yes.
Now we're reliving that.
Yes. It's come around again.
Yeah.
I think I remember as a kid really being scared when they go on the ship at the end.
Yeah.
And it's this big maze.
And
there's a giant robotic spider that sniffs their crotches and grabs their butts.
Yeah, it was a little touchy-feely.
Yeah, there was all kinds of weird double entendre moments that we don't need to catalog here. But I think when the robot spider, a bunch of alarms and sirens go off when it sniffs his butt. And it grabs at his butt. That's trying to say something, Joe Dante.
Yep. Hopefully nothing. But
I don't know what it's trying to say, but I know it was trying to say something.
just the potty humor the kids have, you know. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows? That's a deep, dark path to go down.
I think the whole reason the third kid's presence was even required was when the quote-unquote space pirate at the end is yelling at the two smaller aliens.
Yeah.
He's the one who recognizes what that relationship really is. He goes, in his mind, he doesn't say this dialogue, he goes, this is how my dad yells at me when I've done something bad.
Right.
He recognizes it.
I thought he was going to stand up because he stood up for Ethan Hawke at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, that would have meant something. That would have actually tied it back. That would have been like good writing.
I thought he was going to go beat up the big fat alien.
Kick him in his testicles, which are down on his ankles.
Instead, no. He just was like, oh, it's just the kids getting yelled at by Dad again.
Right. You stole his car?
Which was funny, but it was like...
And I got Robert Picardo as that alien. Both of the aliens are really funny.
Yeah.
I was cracking up during all that stuff. They have a weird musical interlude for no reason.
Well, that makes one of us.
You were laughing at some of that stuff.
It was goofy. It was more that I was terrified how weird it was.
It was super weird.
Like,
they're very slick, oily, shiny aliens.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something about, I look at it and I'm like, what's it called when some kind of shape like actually makes you kind of ill?
A shape? Just a shape. Like, okay. I can think of smells.
There's a book. I'm going to reference a book for once in my life. Pattern Recognition by William Gibson.
Is this a Sesame Street book?
No, definitely not. The main character in that book, anytime she sees the Michelin Man, she gets like vomitously ill.
It's like
it's just something about the shapes and the design that just makes her like...
She just thinks of like this grossly shaped, misshapen
That's kind of how I felt about these creatures.
With their suction cup fingers and the extra
like,
ears.
I don't know, just the green, like slimy, blobby skin.
It was kind of like Rob Bottin made it too gross.
Yeah.
He made it a little too gross. I still love it.
Well, that's why it went from like kids' adventure film into weird, creepy cult movie. Like it felt like a weird like...
I also think that they made a deliberate choice to make it gross.
Yeah.
Because these kids are meeting them for the first time. We're supposed to think they're gross too. But how do you think they see us? As he says.
Is Joe Dante the original... Oh God, I'm forgetting his name. Guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy.
James Gunn.
Yes.
I don't think so. I don't think he had that sort of reputation.
But you mean as what exactly?
Because James Gunn came out of Trauma films. He wrote and directed like really low budget. But can you not
see Joe Dante kind of coming out of that? His movies are a little campy and weird.
Campy and weird, but I don't think he was ever that low.
He wasn't. I mean,
people love Trauma, but whatever. It's not
Trauma,
for me.
Peter Jackson. There's definitely, you could see that Peter Jackson was, I would say, inspired by this. Because like the aliens are kind of weird, but also there's one theme in the movie by Jerry Goldsmith that I kept saying again and again. This is like the Rivendell theme out of Lord of the Rings. I swear to God, it must have been used as temp music because it hits so many beats identically that it was a little like,
Because they would know Peter Jackson, probably somebody, and then they could put us in touch with him, and we could ask, like, hey, did you use... Did you use Jerry Goldsmith's score from The Explorers? Not The Explorers, just Explorers. Did you use Goldsmith's score from Explorers as temp music in Lord of the Rings?
I don't think we even have to ask. I think it's pretty obvious. Like, it seems pretty...
You're right. I'm not even questioning
you don't know the score, but I mean, I know you would. If I put them side by side, you'd be like... I could
probably spot the similarities. If I run into Peter Jackson, that's question number one.
Yeah. I'll be like,
did you know Explorers?
Jerry Goldsmith.
I
mean, I know he's dead and he can't defend himself, but...
Who's the composer on Lord of the Rings?
Howard Shore.
Right. Well, I don't like him anyway. He probably stole it. I'm going to go ahead.
I mean, he's a great composer in his own right. So, I don't know.
Not if everything he composes is stolen. That's not very fair.
I mean, James Horner stole from himself for years and years.
I think that's fair.
So,
You can't plagiarize yourself. It's still yours. Unless you sold it to someone else and they own it.
No.
Anyway.
I mean, I'm glad you brought the movie over and I watched it. Now I know.
Now you know that you don't have to again.
That I needed to have seen it before I turned 10 to really probably enjoy it. And now it's just kind of like, okay.
Okay.
It was not as enjoyable as Road Games, which was the last movie you brought.
Right. No, I
was very enjoyable.
I guess the only last thing I have to say about Explorers is that they really do invent a whole new piece of technology pretty easily. He dreams a schematic.
I mean, fucking River Phoenix made a machine that's basically creating AI in his basement before. When did the first Mac come out? 85. I mean, it was like the same year.
It was around that same time where
like Nintendo had only just released in America in 85, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
but based on a fucking pencil sketch drawn in that haze after you first wake up. Oh yeah, I saw this. I saw all these lines and stuff in a dream. Can you make this into a computer? And River Phoenix is like, no
sure,
problem.
Dude.
I'll handle that.
Smart kid.
And
he's Indiana Jones. What do you want?
I kind of wish it wasn't just aliens like we saw here.
Yeah.
I wish it was some sort of greater power, like Elder God level type aliens. Where
okay, name a movie that hits on that.
I don't know if I can. There have been Lovecraft movies, of course, but nothing like where you're getting this sort of arcane knowledge from the beyond void. And like only this one special child can receive it in his dreams. And
what about Q?
That was not
from Star Trek.
Oh, I thought you meant the movie Q.
Oh.
Which is about a giant flying lizard in New York.
What?
Who is sometimes invisible.
Heard, what
Maybe I gotta bring that one. It's not bad. It's actually not bad. Maybe I'll play it another time.
God damn it.
I don't know. It seems too easy. That should have been the first big struggle of the movie, is to how to interpret these shapes, how to put together that puzzle. Remember Contact?
Well, that could be a whole movie in itself. I was going to say, there was some similarities in Contact, too.
Yeah.
Contact's a good movie, though.
Yes.
A very good movie.
You could say it's probably the best remake of Explorers ever made.
How dare you?
Well, we can wrap it up, I guess. That's all I had to say.
All right. I mean, yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. I obviously, it's got a decent cast for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how.
Oh, for a $25 million movie in the 80s?
Yes. Oh, did I said $60 million at one point. I don't know why I said that.
Because that's what it is in 2021 dollars.
Oh.
$25 million then.
See,
$65 million now.
To me? Yeah, I don't have anything to add. But I will say, side note, since we were talking about road games for a minute, way off topic.
Sure.
There was another one made recently called Road Games.
There was?
Mark's face just dropped. But I don't think it's a remake, but it might have elements.
Like,
I don't know, maybe worth checking out.
Inspired by in-universe remake.
Maybe not.
Like
maybe
Evil Dead 2.
Maybe it's just paying homage with the title.
Or they had never heard of the first one and they don't fucking care.
Maybe. Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure.
As always, if you guys listening want to join our Discord channel.
We have a Discord now?
We've had a Discord. I've talked to you on Discord.
Wait, seriously?
You've responded to me on Discord.
Wait, what? Since when do we have a Discord?
The invite link is at our Twitter page, so go to twitter.com/THWT podcast. And the invite link is in the profile.
I just want to say that Mark runs the Twitter and I run the Instagram. Because that's how our minds are different.
So any of the great GIFs you're seeing on Twitter, it's all me, baby.
I'm pretty sure our Instagram is The Hell With This Podcast.
Yeah, I think they'll let you have a longer name on Instagram. Twitter, they limit it just like the messages themselves.
Sounds about right.
THWT Podcasts on Twitter.
Yes.
Come talk to us on Discord. I'm lonely.
Yeah, I can see why. I don't even know about it.
It's Dragon Wagon. If you are enjoying this podcast and other podcasts on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network, be sure to check out the Dragon Wagon Shop. Awesome t-shirts and mugs from your favorite shows so you can tout your podcast pride all while supporting your favorite podcast network. And make sure to check it often for new items and limited time designs. Shop now at dragonwagonradio.com/shop and get your dragon swag on.